that is a bit what's going on here, that Avram is saying, look, this is like a struggle that I'm in right now because I want to trust in Hashem, but it seems to me like I'm not being given what I've been promised or what somehow is, what I have coming to me for the project that I'm trying to bring about for Hashem's sake that He has supposedly blessed, right? So what's going on? But I think that the most specific and precise point we can make has to do with this idea of tzedakah. Because what is this saying? The Torah is saying that a tzaddik like Avram can be in a situation where at some level he deserves life to somehow be better for him than it is, right? Because there is some, story that he's a part of as Avram is, where there's all of this dialogue with Hashem and there's all of this kind of indication of promise and success and everything else. But somehow, like when you add it all up, there seems to be something missing, which in the case of Avram is Yitzchak. Yitzchak is not there for decades and decades. And during that period, that must be excruciating for Avram and Sarah. And even when Yitzchak is eventually born, you can't really just write it off and say, oh yeah, so things worked out fine. What are you complaining about? Avram spends much of his life in this agony of waiting and not knowing and needing to trust, but not having the certainty or the sort of the completion or the fulfillment. And there is something at some level that's kind of unfair about that, right? And the Torah is saying about Avram in a situation that is unfair. And so the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with that is that this line, V'yachshevea lo tzedakah, right? That this was accounted for him as tzedakah. Think of who is playing what role in that equation. If this is tzedakah, then it's like Avram is giving a loan to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving Avram some collateral, but then it's like the collateral is going back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the way you think about it is it's like Avram has this long-term thing that is due to him. Right? Avram has behaved righteously and is living a righteous life and is doing all these things for Hashem. And in the long term, Olam Haba, or the end of life, eventually Avram gets blessed, Bakol, blessed in everything, right? So either at the end of his life or after his life, whatever, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really going to pay him back. But in the meantime, he can give him brachot, he can give him blessings because he's a righteous tzaddik. But there's this ebb and flow of that, right? There still are times when Avram just feels flung down, right? That bad things are happening to him. And when those bad things happen, at one level, he can say, look, this isn't fair. I'm doing everything right, and you're being mean to me. Why are you doing this? But the way that the Torah is describing the situation, what it's saying is, look, this is like tzedakah. This is like the collateral that on the one hand, Hashem will bless Avram over the course of his life. And on the other hand, sometimes he'll take the blessing away, and Avram will feel like he's down in the dumps. But if he has the right attitude about that, then he understands this is just the collateral going back and forth. It is a mark of my righteousness. It is a mark of my generosity and my consideration. And it is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's acknowledgement in a sense that, look, this is how I want the world to work, and I know it's hard on you, so I'll allow you to think of me in this way in order to help you to cope psychologically with the unfairness of it all and with the difficulty of it. But just remember, first of all, you're the one who's, giving in that relationship. And so suddenly there's more agency and there's more confidence, like that if you can have the emunah of Avram, then you get to feel like you've willingly and voluntarily given up the blessing that is owed to you. And that's a very different state of mind to be in than saying, oh, come on, like I was supposed to have a better life. This is so awful, like Eov or something, where you're such a tzaddik, but you're expecting, the payoff. And when you don't get it, it's very bitter and very upsetting. there's a lot of textual comparison between Eov and Avram that the sages play with in Midrashim. So this is not an accidental connection at all. But the point is that Avram is not going to be Eov. Avram is going to say, I voluntarily give as a kind of tzedakah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects of me, whatever is owed to me, like even at the level of collateral, part of the time. And then eventually there will be some greater recompense, where really Avram is given what he's owed in fairness and in justice, whether that's at the end of his life or after his life, however you want to look at it. But there is this trust that you can have. So, the model that this is presenting for us is saying, look, everyone has a hard life. Even Avram Avinu had a hard life, right? He was Hashem's favorite person ever. He was the greatest tzaddik ever, maybe. And still, that didn't exempt him from difficulty. But the question is, what's the mindset that allows you to, more so at least than you might otherwise, handle that difficulty with alacrity and with poise and with confidence and with emunah. And the way that Avram is doing that is by HaKadosh Baruch Hu is helping him to feel like the way to understand this is I'm borrowing from you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying. And what I give to you now or what I take away from you now, that's actually what's owed to you only as collateral, or it's you with generosity giving it back to me for a short time with your agency and with your magnanimity that can give you confidence and that can give you a certain kind of self-respect, even when bad things are happening to you. Like when bad things happen to you, that's when you feel the most self-respect. But in the long term, you get what's owed to you, and you spend the time in between working on that trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and developing the relationship that makes that trust more solid and more substantive. And so while this is something that applied to Avram and probably also to Yaakov with his wrestling with Hashem, the same kind of deal, that there are these struggles that we have to deal with, even when we feel like we're not necessarily the worst person in the world or doing the thing most wrong that should deserve the greatest punishment, but still everyone sometimes feels like they have difficulty and sometimes feels like they're being punished. But all the more so, if Avram can feel this way, we also will have difficulty. But there's this opportunity in the face of that difficulty to try to transform your understanding of what it means and say, this is actually an opportunity for me, rather than resenting HaKadosh Baruch Hu for not dealing fairly with me, to say instead, I know that this ebb and flow that I'm in the midst of right now is just sort of handing a small token back and forth. And then when the token goes over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I give it freely, and it's a mark of my emunah, and it's a mark of my magnanimity or my self-respect or what have you. And then when it comes back to me, I'm grateful, but I know that really the long term is the foundation of my emunah, because that's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really going to show you what he has in store for you.